Show me that age and country where the rights and liberties of the people were placed on the sole chance of their rulers being good men, without a consequent loss of liberty. Patrick Henry. What is going on, everybody? My name is Logan, and welcome back to the Conservation Project, the podcast for the average Joe that still believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that we are still one nation under God. So, Happy New Year, first of all. And this is different, isn't it? So, if you're listening to this right now on a standard podcast like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever that may be, what you don't know right now is that if you go to www.theconservationproject.org, you can actually watch this in real time as far as this is being recorded. And for those of you who are seeing this on the YouTube or on the website itself, this is a lot different. This is a totally different format. Now, the actual structure of the podcast is pretty much going to stay the exact same. We're going to be doing things very, very similarly to how we've done them in the past. Now, for what it's worth, there's going to be a little bit more moving. I'm handling all of this myself all at once, and, well, frankly, that just leaves more for me to do, and honestly, I'm okay with that. But I really wanted to start off this whole new thing, this new year, this new format of actually seeing the video and having, we're going to have, as I mentioned in the update, there's going to be clips that I'm going to play. You're actually going to hear news and audio in real time as we talk about it, as we discuss it. It's going to be a much more all-encompassing way of getting this news and talking about it and talking about its relevance. That's really where this is going to kind of take off in that sense. Now, with that being said, I chose this quote from Patrick Henry, and if you see me looking around, it's because I'm looking at my notes and stuff like that, so don't worry too much. But I'm going to read this again because I wanted to kick off 2022 with this quote on purpose. Show me that age and country where the rights and liberties of the people were placed on the sole chance of their rulers being good men, without a consequent loss of liberty. I want that to be something that you dwell on, especially going into 2022, especially going into new elections and a whole new cycle of news media, of politics, of COVID. We're going to be talking about that as well. That's not going anywhere. But before we get into that, go check out the website. Go check out the merch. I do want to point this out. For those of you that aren't seeing the video, behind me is my grandfather's bicentennial flag, and it's real old. You can see it's kind of purpled out now. But I wanted to follow up that quote with pointing this out. This is history. This is important. History is important. Education is important. You know, I was just discussing with somebody today, actually, another quote that I really wanted to follow this up with. I follow an account that has to do with the founders, famous quotes of the founders. Specifically, this one comes from John Jay. It's about history. It's about education. He says this: I consider knowledge to be the soul of a republic, and as the weak and wicked are generally in alliance, as much care should be taken to diminish the number of the former as of that latter. Education is the way to do this. And I love that. I absolutely love that. Because history is important, and we need to keep this in mind. The average Joe needs to keep this in mind, especially going into such an important year. The Christian conservatives, we've talked about this in previous episodes, but it really is. It's time to stand up. It's time to speak out. It's not time to raise arms. It's not. It's not. There's a lot of people who have been arguing that lately. It's not. It genuinely isn't. And I think events like what happened with Turning Point USA in the last couple weeks in Arizona, the speakers that they had, I think they really emphasized that. But, it's time to hold some accountability to ourselves, of course, but to our politicians, to the people that we look up to. And the first two topics we're going to talk about today are actually going to be very in line with that. It's all about the progression. It's all about one foot in front of the other. But on that same token, it takes two to tango here. Let me kind of break down what I mean. First thing I want to talk about is, so Democratic state lawmakers are actually proposing laws to curb quote-unquote misinformation on social media. Now, one of these bills being led right now is by the New York State Senator Brad Hoylman. And so this Monday, he proposed a bill. He announced, and you can break it down and you can see all of it. He announced this bill, and it's aimed at reducing the spread of misinformation and harmful content online. It's specifically through social media companies, and they're actually trying to back channel it through the support of social media companies. Its verbiage is prohibiting, quote, knowingly or recklessly promoting content through specific algorithms. Basically, algorithms that could suggest false statements of fact or fraudulent medical theory, and I'm quoting this out of the bill, includes a false statement of fact or fraudulent medical theory that is likely to endanger the safety or health of the public. Now, the reason I wanted to start with this is not that this is particularly surprising, because frankly, it's not surprising whatsoever, actually. But the contradiction is really what gets me. Here's what I mean. As many know, Rochelle Walensky, she is the director of the CDC. She is the administrator of the Agency for Toxic Substances and Disease Registry. She's more famous right now for being the CDC director. Now, here's why I led with that bill proposed in New York. Walensky has been caught in even more, I can't believe I'm saying this, but even more inconsistencies in her arguments that she's making. Here's what I mean. So she had an interview Wednesday on Good Morning America, and she was talking specifically about PCR tests for COVID-19. And she was saying that these tests can stay positive for, up to 12 weeks after infection. So she said that under new CDC guidelines, a negative PCR test would not actually be needed to leave quarantine or isolation. She said this, quote, "So we would have people in isolation for a very long time if we were just relying on PCRs." She said that rapid antigen tests are not good indicators of whether someone is actually contagious with COVID-19. But she goes to say this, quote, "We know it performs really well during that period where you're initially infected, but the FDA has not at all looked at whether your positive antigen really does correlate with whether you're transmissible or not." So, back to the inconsistency thing. Frankly, when I read this and I heard this, it really didn't surprise me. They have been extremely inconsistent throughout the almost 2 years that we've been dealing with this. It's just not a surprise anymore. And I think that's part of the problem. And we're going to get back to that because I really do think that's one of the biggest parts of this problem. Now, somebody made a good point. I don't know who this is, but it's another blue check mark on Twitter. But when Good Morning America and ABC released a tweet about what she said about PCR tests staying positive for up to 12 weeks and that we're going to have to alter the CDC guidelines. Somebody responded with this. I don't know how to pronounce this name, but it's a blue check mark. Yossi Gestiner? I don't know. That is a whole different language. Anyways, they said this. So this means that for the past 21 months, people sat home for extra days and weeks because their test came back with an irrelevant positive. So we didn't know this 6, 12, 18 months ago? Really? And yes, sir, with the name I cannot pronounce at all. That is a fair statement. And we have to kind of branch out of our own viewpoint on this because, well, it's not just the U.S. This is a global issue. And this is the world that we're talking about here. People have put their lives on hold for this pandemic. And maybe I'm just too heavy-handed at this point, which is, to be fair, which at this point, it would not surprise me if I come off that way. But Ben Shapiro said something on one of his episodes one time, and I think he's been saying this pretty frequently as of late. He said, for all intents and purposes, this pandemic is over. And what he means by that is, well, you've got two choices. You're a grown adult, so you chose option one, which was to get the vaccine. Or you're a grown adult and you chose option two, and that's to not get the vaccine. Congratulations, this pandemic is over. End of discussion. But then we have this back and forth with the WHO, the CDC, guidelines, people like Fauci. All these people jumping in here, our public health leadership, making statements and claims, just like the CDC director, Walensky, saying certain things are true, but now they're not. But here's the funny thing. This is the second thing I've seen in the last week that pretty much points out that they really don't care much about your health. They care about the control. And here is the explanation for that. So, yes, there's a lot of inconsistencies in this, but this actually transitions us into, well, the second aspect of the second topic, we'll say. So, you may be familiar with this, but the inconsistencies of the CDC, and then things like what Fauci said this past week, actually, I think it came out yesterday on the 30th, about how hospitals are over-testing and over-counting. Now, as I seem to recall, both of these topics were getting people labeled as conspiracy theorists, getting people, quote-unquote, canceled, getting people doxxed. Now, why are we allowed to say that this is correct now? And by the way, the third topic we're going to talk about, well, frankly, it's also about this as well. It's about another topic that even our own president is saying now that was previously getting people canceled, called conspiracy theorists. But let's break down what's going on with Fauci here. So Fauci is saying that hospitals are effectively, quote unquote, overcounting COVID-19 cases, specifically in children. So he's kind of reining it in. He's not making a broad statement, but specifically in children. He's saying that they're automatically getting tested and they're being, the distinguishing features between whether it's for COVID or with COVID that they end up in the hospital. Now, he was attempting on MSNBC to kind of give a background and some insight as far as the accuracy of metrics used for counting these positive COVID-19 cases, specifically in children. And he did this on MSNBC on Wednesday. And it was in regards to the topic of children are being tested every single time they go into a hospital. Every time they enter a hospital, regardless of what reason they're there. He's saying that, and we'll hear the clip here in a moment. He's saying that many children are being hospitalized with COVID rather than for COVID, and that it's being overcounted. Now, I seem to recall a lot of us being very skeptical of this Well, this exact thing for the last year, really. Uh, Here's a comparison for you. People still bring this up. What happened to flu cases last year? There's articles right now on places like ABC, MSNBC, you name it. There's articles right now saying the flu's coming back. After taking a year off, the flu is coming back. I actually read that article, by the way. I don't remember where it's from. I should have pulled that up. It's not really relevant to this as far as what we're breaking down. But on that same token, this is the thought process that a lot of people have, and it's because of people like Anthony Fauci who are saying these things. So let's just hear exactly what it is that he's got to say. We're going to switch it over to the news camera here, and I want you guys to hear this clip.
But the other important thing is that if you look at the children who are hospitalized, many of them are hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID. And what we mean by that, if a child goes in the hospital, they automatically get tested for COVID, and they get counted as a COVID hospitalized individual, when in fact they may go in for a broken leg or appendicitis or something like that. So it's overcounting the number of children who are, quote, hospitalized with COVID as opposed to because of COVID.
And see, it's things like that that make you question. And frankly, it's things like that should have been questioning beforehand. And if you're just now seeing it, thank God you're questioning it now. Because why is he questioning it now? Because people have been saying this for, 16, 18 months now? Somewhere in that range. You know, people are actively calling him out on this now. It hasn't been a day that this has been out. This has been making rounds really heavily in the last day. It happened, and people started thinking, hold on a minute, you're catching yourself in this. Because this is the same stuff that people were being pegged as conspiracy theorists for. People were saying that the hospitalizations data that's been coming out for the last year plus has been complete garbage. And it's very weird to say this, but when you look at it this way, it is. It actually is. A gentleman named Andy Swan. I don't know who he is. He's another blue check mark on Twitter. Twitter's not a real place, so it doesn't matter, but he makes a good point. He says this: it's amazing to watch the quote-unquote experts say word for word what the banned conspiracy theorists, quote, were trying to communicate for the past 20 months. Yeah. He's absolutely right. Even in May of this year, Stanford University stated this: that people were vastly overestimating childhood COVID-19 cases for the exact same reasons that Fauci just laid out in the clip you just heard. And, you know, he didn't mention anything about overcounting cases, you know, not being a good idea, that it was theorized that this was happening before, yada, 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 yada. Interesting, isn't it? It's very, very interesting to me. This is what I mean when we have to demand accountability. It's more, our group is more than just standing up and being loud. Because we have, for the last several years, been the silent majority. And I have a theory about that, and this could be baseless. But I think that the presidency of Donald Trump, I believe it was so aggressive. Here's what I mean. He was so unapologetically conservative, rah-rah, on a lot of things. And he was so loud on social media, on legacy media, and just in general, he was very loud about the things that he believed, and it very succinctly alienated a group of right-wing, we'll say right-wingers to kind of play out this theory here, but it very much alienated a group and kind of gave them a backbone that I don't think they asked for. And so now we have somebody who is so far left, Biden, that when we make any sort of comparisons, when we draw any sort of lines, we're automatically labeled conspiracy theorists and stuff like that because we've gotten to a point where it just doesn't matter. We went from as far right as we've seen in a hot minute to as far left as we've seen in a hot minute, and we got complacent. During our minute, we got complacent because we had somebody who was so outspoken that whether we liked it or not, he spoke for all of us. But he was like 90% there, so we were good with it. We wrote it out. At least we got a guy on the right in the right place. And now we have somebody who is extremely left in the wrong place. And it's almost like we're learning how to speak out again. We started to figure it out in the second term of Obama's administration. We started to get it. We started to figure it out right at the end, and it was too late. But right up until those last couple of years, old Donnie started walking out, and that was when we started to get real loud again. But we didn't shoot for middle ground. We said, by God, this is where we're going to stand. Why aren't we doing that now? Because the atrocities we're facing in this administration currently is so far beyond what we were dealing with Obama, and Obama was bad. But where have we gone? That's my question with this. Especially with this garbage. I'm just going to be frank. The garbage that is coming out of the White House. And this leads into the third topic. And this happened this week, and this has been making rounds. So the White House is, well, it's turned upside down right now. Biden has said that, he's made the promises over and over and over that he's going to shut down the virus. Donald Trump does not have a plan. I do. How many times did you read that screenshot on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, his tweet, all of your lefty friends retweeting this? I've read that tweet a lot. Doesn't matter. Twitter's not a real place. Anyways, now President Joe Biden has informed governors that there was, quote, wait for it, no federal solution to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm sorry, what? You're talking a lot of game, brother. Hold on. Can we just take it back real quick? Because last I checked, you just railed the same dude in the media for ages about how he was doing a horrible job and that you had the playbook for it. But now you're just cheating off the paper of the guy that came before you? We've all been saying that this is a state's issue, that it should be the states. That's like the whole point of this. And if you can't see, if you're listening, I'm pointing at the flag behind me right now. That's how we started this thing, man. That's the whole purpose. States' rights here, people. Like, that is what a lot of people on the right have been saying since the beginning of this. This is not about federal, mandates. This is about the states doing what they deem right, because New York is a whole lot different than Alabama, than California, than Montana, than Florida, than Texas. They're all different scenarios, and one broad sweeping brush is not going to fix this problem. And again, for the third topic in a row, almost a half hour into this, I'm beginning to realize that, this is the third topic in a row of, we said this before. We've been saying this. We were vilified for saying this. I have had people come at me on social media, on my personal account, which I'm shadow banned on again, by the way, for talking about this exact thing. It's about the states' rights. Where have we gone here? Honestly, what's changed in the last 2 weeks? And this is a rhetorical question because I don't have an answer for it. What changed? What's gone differently? Because I haven't figured it out. I really haven't. The administration currently, even further than that, is they're going through initial campaign promises about what they plan to do as far as attacking it, but this is after Biden promptly said, "Hey, we don't have a solution. I'm going to go take a walk on the beach alone in a mask." In all seriousness, after all of this contradiction, and then this big finale of there is no federal solution, the president walks out and is filmed stepping on to Marine One and immediately is being taken to his beach house. Now, listen, Trump went on a lot of golf trips. That's fair. That is a fair argument. I've always thought that was actually a fair argument from the left. You know, you vote for a guy, you want him to be there, show up to the party once in a while. At least our guy was lucid for the parties he showed up for. We currently have a senile old man who mic dropped and then went to the beach and has spent time being photographed standing out alone on the beach with a dog wearing a mask. What? Is this... Again, with the whole accountability thing, there's people defending this. These same people who have been vilifying us for the last 20 months are now supporting him washing his hands of this and going to the beach. But they're upping testing. They're stockpiling. I'm going to show you this. This is a tweet from the White House, and I'll read it for those of you that can't see it. This is from the White House. The Biden-Harris administration is making sure states have what they need to tackle COVID, including 1,000 additional doctors and nurses, stockpiling millions of gowns, gloves, masks, and ventilators, adding vaccine and booster capacity, and more. And that's what it says on the official White House Twitter. I am reading that from there right now. Go ahead and soak that in. I haven't quite figured that one out. That seems like a day late and $1 short. Here's the thing. I say that a lot, but I'm churning through this. This came out literally right after Biden publicly said that there's no federal solution, and he said it to a bunch of governors, and of course they're going to run with this, especially the Republican governors. They're going to run with it. I have a theory. The chief of staff, Ron Klain, I believe it is, listened to the president. There's no federal solutions, and then went, "Oh God, he just blew us up." And then they tweeted this. They tweeted this. Yeah, like, what are you supposed to do with this, man? It's just nonsense. This isn't even saving face anymore. I mean, really, it is not. It is not saving face anymore. Here's the thing. I'm just gonna show you this. This is a little impromptu, but I'm going to go ahead and pull this up.
Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
He said that. Here, I'll let you see it. Seriously.
Look, there is no federal solution. This gets solved at a state level.
And it's worth noting. It's worth noting that he said that in front of his fake backdrop of the White House that he resides in. By the way, little thing, real minor. Yeah. So yeah, maybe it is time that we get a little loud. Maybe it is time that we get a little rambunctious. Not in the inciting violence kind of way that, Lori Lightfoot's going to throw at you. And, oh, God, the chick from Minnesota, Ilhan Omar, who's doing her own violence. Yeah, she's inciting her own violence. It's time to demand a little bit more. It's time to get a little louder. It's time to start writing. And I mentioned the education thing at the start of this. I gave that quote. Here's why I gave that quote. If you educate early, it's biblical. Raise up a child how they should be, and they will never stray from it. That is biblical. And if we start early wrong, if we do it improperly, we're left with this. I'm going to read this headline. It's from the Daily Wire. Chicago Teachers Union issues lists of demands for return to in-person learning that must be met by Monday. This is no joke. I'm about to pull this up on the screen so you can actually read the official, this is an actual proposal that was put out by the Chicago Teachers Union. Okay? CTU, the Chicago Teachers Union official Twitter page, put this tweet out. And I'll show it to you as well. So, here it is. Our union proposes Mayor Lightfoot and her CPS team must put mitigations in place, including COVID-19 testing, by January 3rd to ensure safety as classes resume. If mitigations are not in place, in-person learning must be paused so the district can implement proper safety measures. Now, what you see on the screen here, and I will read this out as we go. This is the December 30th, 2021 proposal from the Chicago Teachers Union. And this is the CP. This is the breakdown. There's seven steps in here. All right. So, CPS shall require that all staff, students, vendors, and volunteers provide a negative result from a PCR COVID-19 test taken within 48 hours before returning to in-person learning. CPS shall provide at least 300 school testing sites and take-home tests for all community members who need them. Number 2, the City of Chicago is currently meeting the public health metric for our February 2021 MOA requiring a district-wide 14-day operational pause. If CPS cannot comply with paragraph 1 above, it shall observe that metric included for reference below. Here's a quote from that metric. Following the resumption of in-person learning under this agreement, CPS shall pause the in-person learning for 14 days and transition fully to remote instruction citywide if the COVID-19 test positivity rate of 7-day rolling average in the city of Chicago meets the following criteria. The rate increases for 7 consecutive days. The rate for each of the 7 consecutive days is at least 15% higher than the rate 1 week prior, and the rate on the 7th day is 10% or greater. CPS shall resume in-person learning when the 14-day pause expires or when the criteria for pausing in-person learning are no longer met, whichever is later. All right, number 3. CPS shall reinstate the health screener policy in place during the 2020 to 2021 school year. Number 4, CPS shall provide KF94, KN95, or N95 masks to all staff and students, including pediatric-sized masks appropriate for younger students. Number 5, when in-person learning resumes, schools shall shift to remote learning anytime 20% or more of the school staff is in isolation or quarantine due to COVID-19 infection or close contact. Or when a school-level safety committee concludes a flip to remote is warranted due to high levels of infection or inadequate observance of safety protocols and mitigations. Number 6, when in-person learning resumes, CPS shall reinstate the accommodations and leaves provisions from the February 2021 MOA, including for all individuals with medical risks. Number 7, the last one, when in-person learning resumes, principals shall have the authority to flip classes to remote upon receiving notification of a positive case in the class. And you can see at the bottom there, if you're looking at the video, this is the actual official proposal. And they are absolutely standing by this. Lori Lightfoot does not run her city. Let me make that very clear in case you were confused. She has very little control over what she's actually seeing happen in her city. We could start with the gang violence alone and the fact that she's empowering that, but that's for another episode. Anyways, so this was a quote from an article from the Daily Wire about the initial Chicago Teachers Union raising the possibility of going remote learning this week. So the Chicago Teachers Union is defiantly challenging the Chicago public schools, polling its membership to ask them if they would, quote, support a district-wide pause and temporary shift to remote learning. The same union released a video in January of 2021 showing 6 of their members who were dance teachers performing an interpretive dance to express their feelings about refusing to return to work unless they felt safe. I would love to be able to find this video. I'm wondering, is it around? I gotta tell you, if I could find that video, I would love to throw that one up there. Because I'm telling you, Lori Lightfoot is not in control of, oh my goodness, I actually found the video. Would you like to see it? Because it's bad. I'm telling you, it's bad. I'm just going to throw a glimpse out here. This is a 2.5 minute video, but you need to see. You need to at least see it. There we go. Choreographed by CPS dance teachers. I'm going to turn this volume way down. I'm just going to bounce around here. And I mean, if you can't see this right now, what we're essentially watching is somebody who put this together on their Windows XP movie editor and basically spliced together horribly choreographed stuff in people's living room. They filmed each other in their living room. Like, they filmed themselves in their living room. And this is extremely uncomfortable to watch. I mean, people hugging with masks, they didn't have masks here. What are we doing? I mean, like, seriously, they didn't have masks there, but oh no, they got a virtue signal now, because if you can't see it, they were saying children's safety is essential, so they hugged each other and put on masks together. I don't. This is the kind of thing that I'm talking about. We've been saying stuff for 20 months now, okay? For 20 months. Chicago is a lost cause with Lori Lightfoot in charge. Again, the gang violence alone proves that point. But here's why I feel this is so important to bring up. Lori Lightfoot is very popular in the left crowd for very obvious reasons. She gets a lot of face time, a lot of camera time, because of how outspoken she is with the garbage that her city is pushing. Things like this interpretive dance is a perfect example of this. We are living in an age now where virtue signaling is the implementation of morality or the lack thereof from the right. I believe that video really did just prove that. I believe this proposal from the teachers union, I believe that proves that. I believe that the way things are turning around with what we covered today with Walensky backpedaling, with Anthony Fauci backpedaling, with Joe Biden, wait for it, backpedaling, I think it's very indicative of where we stand. I do. I think it's very indicative of where we stand. But on that same token, it brings me a little hope. I'm not going to lie to you, it brings me a little hope. Seeing this blatant virtue signaling, seeing this unapologetic garbage being spewed by our administration, the chief of staff clearly putting out his beliefs as damage control. I even think that there's some hope to be found in Biden washing his hands of it to a degree. I don't think it's going to affect any federal mandates. I don't think he's got the guts to reverse any of that. But what some see as him relinquishing control, I see it as progress. I see it as a step forward. I see it as the right foot is now in front of the left. And the left's picking up. I do see it that way. I honestly, I'm proud of the work that we have done. I'm proud of the comments we've written on ATF comments, on their posts, of us speaking out on protests and speaking out against the terrorism of Black Lives Matter group, of speaking out against Anthony Fauci. Ted Cruz has been doing that lately, and it has been exactly what we need. But after all of this, these 4 topics we've covered that are, frankly, a really rough way to start a new year, I can't help but have a little bit of fire in my belly. I can't help but have a little bit of a boost that I feel like I needed, that I feel like I really genuinely needed. And I feel like we all need that. Because, man, I look at this and I see hope. And we've finally reached out enough to the point where people like Ted Cruz, and they're speaking out for us for once. And we're not rioting, we're protesting, we're not rioting, we're writing people, we're making the comments, we're reaching out to representatives. We're doing exactly what we have to do. And we're seeing the fruits. We're seeing them in real time. That's why I want to end on this verse, man. This is the best possible verse that I could end this episode, the first episode of 2021 on. I'm going to end with a little toxic positivity. 1 Corinthians 10:31. So whatever you do, whatever you eat or drink, whatever you do, do it all to the glory of God. Do it all. And we see what the benefits are. We're watching it. A lot of negativity that we covered. Take the positive from it. That's how we get over this, and that's how we make a change. I hope you all enjoyed this new format. I love this. It's a lot more challenging for me, but I love it. Go check out theconservationproject.org. But that's all I got, y'all. My name is Logan. This has been The Conservation Project, the podcast for the average Joe that still believes in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that we are still one nation under God. That's all I got, y'all. Have a good day.